Welcome to the Climb Podcast, where we are diving into taboo topics and redefining the rules for women of color leaders. Get ready as we share the stories and amplify the voices of extraordinary women of color, from navigating workplace challenges to celebrating triumphs. On this podcast, we've got you covered. So buckle up and join us as we embark on today's empowering journey. Welcome to the Climb Podcast, where we empower women of color in the pursuit of managerial and leadership roles. I'm your host, Felicia Smith, the founder of The Climb, a 501c3 organization that's committed to increasing the number of women of color in leadership and managerial positions. And each week, we dive into topics that have been mystified, tabooed, or just really not talked about in terms of our leadership journeys. And today, our topic is leading at work, loving at home, balancing career and special needs parenting. And I'm so excited to have someone here with me today who has been a part of the same journey that I've been a part of in some ways. And so I'd like to introduce our guest, Miss Shatanese Reese.
Hello. Hey, Felicia, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm glad.
And I just want to say for our individuals who may be joining who are visually impaired that I have glasses on, my hair is in 2-strand twists, and I have on kind of a pullover with the SR logo. And it's
I love that. I've never done that on the podcast. Okay, I'm gonna try to come behind you. I might not be as good. Yes, I also have on glasses. I have kind of a blondish black here. I have on black, and there are no logos. Actually, the logo, The Climb, is behind me, and it's kind of a boardroom. So that is my background for today.
Love that.
Awesome. I love that.
We're both African American. Well, I'm presuming.
Yes, we are. We both are African American.
African American women. Yes.
That was a good assumption. You didn't go wrong.
It's good to be here.
It is good to be here. So I'd like to read your bio so everyone knows a little bit more about you. Shatanese is the CEO of Shatanese Reese LLC and has over 25 years of human resource experience. Her career includes coaching, training, facilitation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, talent acquisition, employee relations, investigations, performance management, and employee engagement. So anything that you need in the realm of people, she has it. There is nothing that's missing. And as a certified EQ and DISC consultant, she enjoys creating space for difficult conversations and impacting cultures through increasing self-awareness amongst teams and leaders. I love your bio and all of your backgrounds. I mean, you can't go wrong. You've literally touched everything in terms of what we would consider human resources, but I consider people and culture. So that is awesome.
Yes, I learned early in my career that I enjoy the outward facing aspects of human resources. So that's the talent acquisition, that's the onboarding, that's the engagement, that's, increasing productivity, learning and development. Benefits and payroll, definitely important, but not my jam, not my jam at all. So
you're all the people. I love it. So we're going to break down this topic. So I want to start off with you just having the ability to kind of share your journey as a professional, as an individual, and like you also having just similar to myself, and I'll talk about mine also, having a child with special needs.
Yes. Well, as you've already shared, I've been in human resources for 2.5 decades. It's hard to believe that it's almost 30 years. I have enjoyed the experience of HR and have been in Atlanta for 25 years.
Wow.
Originally from Iowa. So it's almost getting to that tipping point where I've been in Atlanta longer than I was in Iowa. But I still claim the Midwest as home. So being in human resources, have truly enjoyed just getting to know various aspects of people and what it means to manage an organization and leveraging its most important resource, which is the people.
Yeah.
And I would say that it was in 2016 when I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer that I just paused. You know, there's nothing like a medical situation to cause you to reevaluate your life. And Felicia, I thought, am I really truly doing what I need to be doing, what I'm supposed to be doing, what I've been called to do? My faith is extremely important to me.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided a year later to launch Shatanese Reese LLC. And so I've positioned myself as an emotional intelligence coach and also a master facilitator. And so what that means is I get to work with individuals individually and also collectively in teams to ensure that they're reaching their greatest potential. And so on the personal side, mom to 6 individuals. I've given life to 6 people here that
You
are
look
walking.
amazing, by the way. After giving life to 6 individuals. For
Thank you.
everyone, she looks amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I call them my Reese's Pieces. And so
Aw.
the ages are from 27 all the way down to 9. And my youngest, Josiah, that's my heart.
Aw.
And he is the my special needs little person.
Mhm.
So we learned while I was pregnant with Josiah that there were some issues with his heart. And the medical team told us that there was a 99% chance that he was going to have Down syndrome.
Mhm.
And so, Felicia, full transparency, I was clinging to that 1%
Mhm.
that he was not going to have Down syndrome. And
Mhm.
so, even though I'd had exposure, through a close friend who also has a beautiful daughter who has Down syndrome, I thought, not me, like
Yeah.
not my child. And it was certainly a growing it was a journey. We're still
Yeah.
on that journey. And so,
Yes.
as I stated, Josiah is 9, but I've learned so much about myself. And so my husband and I, we navigate this thing called life together and, parenting, all 6 of our kiddos. Um, and so I wouldn't change being mom to Josiah for anything, even
Yeah.
though medical staff said you could terminate the pregnancy if you wanted to.
Yeah. Oh no, I have a similar story actually. When I think I was maybe coming out of my first trimester, and I forgot what test it was that they did, and they found some abnormalities of the structure of the brain, but it was whatever it was. I forgot the exact name now. It wasn't something that was, although abnormal, a lot of Americans walk around with it today and don't even realize that it's a thing. And so we knew that there could potentially be some issues, and because they knew it was an abnormality, they offered us like, hey, you're right at that place where you guys could decide to, have an abortion. And that's your option, or you can continue to go forward. And, me and my husband just really believed, like, whatever it is, God's gonna fix it. Whatever it is, it's gonna work out. And so we just continue to move forward. Now, maybe 2 months later, I ended up on bed rest and was on bed rest for a month and a half before I delivered him at 27 weeks. So he was a preemie,
Wow.
and a preemie with all kinds of little issues of what we initially thought was his lungs that actually turned out to be his stomach that kept us in the NICU for 7.5 months.
Oh my goodness.
7.5 months of living in the NICU, and if you've been in the NICU,
Yes.
it's ups and downs. You could have 3 amazing days, and then that fourth day, it seems like everything has gone wrong. You could
Yes.
be planning to go home on Friday, and then all of a sudden you're not going home at all. And so we did that for 7 months, 2 hospitals, one here locally in Virginia, and then in Columbus, Ohio at Nationwide, which I love Nationwide, amazing place. Um, and then my son came home. Now my son is what we consider medically complex, but he's also autistic and nonverbal. And so I always tell people, people like, so what exactly? I'm like, he has all kind of little things, but he's still, so much to your point, so much of a blessing. It has been a roller coaster of learning him, because the thing about having a child who's nonverbal is you're learning everything about them their movements, how they are, things that they like, don't like. And then the older they get, they actually begin to tell you very clearly,
Yeah.
nonverbal or not, what they like or don't like. But it was certainly a journey, to your point. And professionally, worked in the government, still working, still trying to do that while raising my son. So I completely understand. I say all that to say, I completely understand, that journey, and someone saying, well, why would you continue? Like, there's going to be an issue. But their lives are just as important. And I believe, like you believe, as a woman of faith, that God just called us to this,
Yeah.
raising these beautiful little boys who have a purpose, and God is living out that purpose through them. Yeah.
Absolutely. We also spent time in NICU, and as a firm believer of breastfeeding, I chose to pump and take the milk up to the
Yes.
NICU, and like you, we're hoping that Josiah passes the car seat
Yep.
test. Didn't even know
Yep.
that was a thing.
Yes.
And if didn't pass that, then he wasn't going home. So and also having the perspective of a mother of previous children having to leave the hospital
Mm,
without my child was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
yeah.
So I'm home and my child is not. And so, entrusting my child to the medical staff and like all of those things. And so it's a lot. It's a
It
lot that we go through as
is.
families. So, not just simply us, but the
The
siblings and aunts,
siblings,
uncles,
yes.
all of
Yes.
everybody and the child. So
Mhm.
Josiah similarly has to use a device in order to communicate. So being able to understand, what he's trying to communicate is absolutely important. And so now that he is using a device, it's like we have a window, like we can see, like, oh my gosh, there he is.
Mhm.
I real quick story, Felicia, I can remember was giving Josiah a bath, and at that time I had used a product to clean out the bathtub
Mhm.
prior to him getting in, but I hadn't rinsed out the tub fully. And
Mhm.
so, do you remember using Comment? Like I don't.
Yes, I comment was my jam too.
And so, I hadn't rinsed it out fully, and so there's the grainy product still on the bottom of the tub, and he was trying to tell me
Mhm.
that, something it was uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
so just little things like that where it just as a parent, your earnest desires to be able to meet the need of your child, and if
Yeah.
they're, having difficulty communicating that, it just, really tugs at
It
your
tugs
heart.
at your heart. It does. And you spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. And we'll talk a little bit later about the guilt that sometimes comes with that and not being able to do it. So it's interesting. I read an article recently from Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, and he talks about raising his special needs son, and how it really taught him empathy, but it also taught him the ability to see through somebody else's eyes, and to think through those hard lessons that only you learn through your life experiences, through experiencing these things, and they really shape you, not just at home, but really as a leader. So how do you think, raising a special needs son has shaped you as a person and a leader?
I think that's a great question, and it's I want to say twofold for me because I'm coming at this with the emotional intelligence lens as well, and so me personally and professionally, I'm already on a heightened level,
Sure.
and having a child with special needs, it increases my ability to be more empathetic and also to consider other perspectives. So just in that example that I was sharing about Josiah being in the bathtub, my initial thought was like, oh, is the water too hot? So my brain goes to that, like that must be the issue. And in reality, it was something completely differently. So being able to recognize as a leader that what you may see may not be the true issue. And so being able to like truly look at things from a different perspective and consider that there may be something else going on versus what you see, just outwardly.
Yeah.
So I think from a leader's perspective, I work with a number of leaders who struggle with performance management, for example. And
Mhm.
so oftentimes when leaders state that there's an issue, I'll say, what do you think the root is? Like what's happening for that person? And so as a parent with special needs, we've learned to think along those lines. What's the root? What could be happening in this moment that we're not,
Yeah.
picking up on, or the cues. So
Yeah.
it
No, that's
certainly
good.
causes us to look through with a different lens, different
No.
eyes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that makes sense even with your background because you do have a heightened and I found that I definitely learned more empathy. I definitely learned more how to not be in control of the moment, right? Because, being in the NICU, or being at home with my son, I have zero, it is not my agenda. As a coach, we talk about agenda. It is not my agenda. It is all his. And so, my husband and I have learned to just go with it, and not try to be so rigid because often it just doesn't work. Um,
No,
and I
yes,
think that translates as a leader.
and
It's,
you become frustrated.
yes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And I recognize that that's difficult for some individuals because, like, throwing in the disc for a second, which
Yeah.
measures dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientious. Um, Oftentimes, individuals who are S's and C's, they like things to be just the exact way.
Yeah.
And we know that from a neurodivergent
Yeah.
perspective, there are people who also want things to be the
Correct.
exact same way.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's hard to pivot, or be flexible or adaptable.
Yeah.
But from a leader's perspective, you have to, or you won't be as effective as a leader. And
No, I agree.
as a parent, you have to as well, or
Yeah.
you'll end up being frustrated with yourself and with your loved one.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we manage, or as special needs parents manage the emotional and mental load, both as leaders in our personal and professional life? Like what advice, or how do you think how have you managed it? And then what advice would you give to someone?
I think it's important to, call it out, to address it, to acknowledge it. And this will be different for every single person because we all
Agreed.
have our own limitations. We all have our own bandwidth. And I think it's important to have a really good sense of self-awareness and knowing what your stopping point is, or what your limitations are, and ensuring that you have the appropriate support around you. So when you do need to take a step back, from a leadership perspective, or even as a parent, you won't have any guilt to do so.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
No, that makes a lot of sense.
it's so important for us to be able to know when we've reached our limits.
Yeah.
We're a much better individual when we recognize I'm tapped out and
Yeah.
I need to take a break. So acknowledging it, having the appropriate support system, and ensuring that you are taking that time to take care of yourself. Those are the ways that I suggest we are able to navigate it.
Yeah, and I like the piece you said, about acknowledging it and just saying it out loud. And I think that really goes into my other question about how you advocate for yourself in the workplace for the flexibilities. Because I know for me personally, when I go into a new space with a new boss, one of the things I do at the beginning is have a conversation with them about who I am as a person, that, I'm a mother of a special needs child. There are times I'm just not going to be here. There are going to be times I'm here and you're going to see me running, and I really do. I'm running out the building. It's not that I'm running because, I'm just slack and I'm just trying to get out of here. It's because I have other responsibilities besides this place, and they're super important to me. And I think in my in all of my years, it's actually went over really well when I've been very honest up front and had that conversation. people then can say, oh, okay, I know what's going on there. I know, that she has a family, she has other responsibilities. And so what are some things that you would say how people could advocate for themselves for like workplace flexibilities?
And hats off to you, Felicia, for being able to do so. Many individuals may feel as if they can't be as transparent and as authentic in their workplaces. I'm hoping that as time continues to go on, we'll reach a place where everyone can feel as if they can advocate for themselves. But I certainly, endorse what you're stating in terms of really talking with their supervisors, their direct reports, and stating, this is what the situation is. Yes, I'm fully committed. Yes, I absolutely plan to get all of my deliverables completed and meeting expectations. And I'm hoping we can, really identify what flexibility looks like,
Yeah.
what I need matching up with what the policies and procedures are of the organization and what the expectations are of that particular person as a manager. I can remember earlier in my career when I had made a decision that it was important for me to be present at the awards or at the holiday luncheon, with the kiddos in the cafeteria. And I made certain that I did everything that I needed to do at work to ensure that I had some of that flexibility. My supervisor at the time told me that she did not feel that it was fair for her to
Mm,
allow me, time off, because there were individuals in the office who did not have children, and they weren't asking for that same level of flexibility. I was really disappointed,
yeah.
especially since none
I
of
am
my
too.
clients had ever complained.
Hmm.
And this person who was my supervisor, they didn't have children, either, so I felt that they weren't as,
Have a
sympathetic,
bias. Yeah.
possibly.
Hmm.
Uh, but I had to make a decision, right? I had a choice to make in that moment, and so I can see both sides where people may say, well, I don't have children, I don't have a child with special needs, I'm not asking for all of these, this leeway in my schedule, this flexibility. We're all different though. We all are different. We show up differently within the workplace. And I
Yeah.
think having those conversations up front, at least the employee knows what they're working with, right?
Yeah.
So advocating absolutely is something that I suggest.
Wow. I'm still thinking about that supervisor. I mean, and that's something I think if we think about the climate that we're in today, which I don't want to go deep into it, but the climate we're in today is this lack of empathy and understanding and this wanting us all to be the same, but it's just not true. Even if I didn't have a special needs child, someone else might be a caretaker for a parent, someone else.
Absolutely.
There could be a myriad of things why a person needs flexibility.
Absolutely.
And so the ability to understand, to your point, that everyone's different. Um,
Well, and the reality is, Felicia, in many instances, especially from a parental perspective, and more specifically from a mother's perspective, we're working even more
yep.
to prove that we
Yep.
are, all, leaned in, or, we're a part of the team and doing our part. We don't want anyone to think that we are not holding up our end of the bargain simply because we have kids. So
Absolutely.
we'll work earlier, we'll work
Hmm.
later, we'll work on weekends whenever the kids go down and they're asleep. We're opening up our laptops again just to prove that we're doing what we're supposed to do. So even if we're not asking for that flexibility, we're still feeling as if we're having to prove
Yeah.
our, our ability to be a part of the team.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And in comes the piece that we talked about earlier, the guilt, right? Because what the balance of it all, which I'm not necessarily a believer in balance. I believe there's sometimes I'm going to be great here, and there's sometimes I'm going to be better here, and I'm
Mhm.
okay with those ebbs and flows. But the guilt of I'm not if I'm showing up very well at work, that means that to your point, I may miss my child's day at lunch or the field trip. So, what advice would you give to a parent that's struggling to balance that working and being, a parent to a special needs child?
It's a tough journey, being a parent first and foremost,
Yes.
and layering it in terms of being a parent with unique abilities. Um, and, just being able to take the time off for the IEP meetings, the meetings
Yes.
where you're meeting with the entire team to ensure that your child is successful academically, like that. You're talking about hour and a half of time.
Yes.
It's only once a year. So,
The prep time too. Yes.
right, right. I don't know, to your point, if there will ever be a state of just homeostasis, like where you're just, balanced and everything's great and like, yay, I never feel as if I'm out of sorts. I can remember throughout my career really, really struggling with that. Even to the point where like my child is sick, do I still send them anyway? Because I know I have, and this was years ago when we actually had to be in the office,
Yes. Yes.
every single day. I think now, really, as a parent and as a parent with special needs, making the decision, understanding your why, and communicating that to your team, to your direct reports, the person to whom you report, and again, seeing if there's any flexibility, and then also knowing when you've reached your boundary.
Mhm.
So, but communication is absolutely key because I get it. I know that there are some deliverables, meetings that have to occur. Also trying to ensure that there is a tribe in place. So in the event that you're not there, that you have trusted individuals who can perhaps, help out in some capacity, specifically with the child, not so much with your work obligations. So just trying to have as many options as possible,
Yeah.
and then not being so hard on ourselves,
Yes,
because oftentimes we are our own worst critic.
for sure.
Um, and again, being able to name that and stating, I really feel whatever that is, filling in the blanks. I really feel guilty. I really feel torn. I really feel frustrated because I can't do this and this.
Yeah,
And it's important to try to plan as much as possible. But you and I both know that sometimes things come up and you can't plan. So that's
correct.
where that grace comes in
For
for
sure.
yourself, for the situation, and the circumstances.
Oh no, that's awesome. And that's what I always tell myself is let grace abound. That's my thing. Just let it because you're just not gonna get it all done. And one of my favorite books called The Four Agreements. I know the author is Miguel. I can't remember his last name, but the fourth agreement is doing your best. And what I've learned is that over the years is that my best will be different every day. Some days I'll be full capacity and it'll be amazing. Some days it's not, but it's still my best. As long as I'm giving what I have to give that day, then let grace abound for the rest.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, to your point, I don't think guilt is ever going to completely go away. But I'm reminding myself that grace abounds, gives me peace about the fact that maybe I didn't show up the way that I wanted to in that moment, but I did the best that I could.
Yes. And also recognizing that it's for a short period of time. It's only a short period of time that our kids will be at this stage, at this level in their academic career. And then there will be a whole new host of other things,
Yes,
but keeping that perspective, right? It's not always going to be this way for forever. Like things will be changing. And that mental health is so important though.
it
It
is.
is truly so important.
Yeah, it is. So, what's one key piece of advice that you would give to a fellow parent who is just navigating the dual roles in general?
I go back to my comment that I said just a few moments ago, just in terms of that self-care.
Yes.
As caregivers, we are giving out. We are taking care of others. And sometimes we're not intentional about taking care of ourselves. I'm very intentional in terms of once a month. at the middle of the month, I close the laptop and I do something that I want to do, whether that's taking a walk, whether that's going to get a massage, whether that's taking a nap. Because sometimes we just need to take a nap.
Yes.
But it's important for me to pour back into myself.
Yeah.
I pour out so much. I'm a small business owner. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a
Yes.
sister. We're all pulled in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so if we don't withdraw and just recalibrate, we run the risk of burning out. We run the risk of ignoring those signs that our body is telling us we've hit our limit.
Yeah.
And the risk of damaging relationships that could have been avoided. So that's my advice, ensuring that you're being intentional about taking care of yourself, because then you have so much more to give to that special person that you've been selected
Yeah.
to their parent.
I
So,
love that. I love that. And I'm about 75% good on the self-care. We're still working on it. I'm a work in progress. But I
at
love
least
that
you're working on
reminder.
it, right? At least you're
Yes.
working on it.
Yes. It is a thought for sure. Shatanese, I want to thank you so much for your time today, for this topic that speaks to my heart, the way that you've poured into me today for this as a mom who is navigating this journey also, um, in the roller coaster that I call myself that I'm on. But I want to give the audience the opportunity to connect with you. So tell them about, how they can find you, where they can connect with you.
Absolutely. They can find me on all social media platforms under Shatanese Reese. So on Facebook, Shatanese Reese LLC, on Instagram, Shatanese Reese. I used to really keep up with TikTok, but we know what's going on with that. So another thing. On LinkedIn as well. So if they had to make a choice, I would say either the LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are
Okay.
the two most well-managed platforms. And then, of course, my website, shatanesereese.com. So certainly check us out. I have a couple of books out on Amazon as well. So if you Google Shatanese Reese, you'll see some inspirational books, as well as a children's book series that I co-authored with my youngest daughter, The Adventures of Nina Sophia. And book number 3 happens to be about Josiah, and it's titled My Brother is Special. So we explore what it's like to have a special needs sibling through the eyes of a younger child. So
Yes. I actually have a plan to donate that book to the library at the school here. My son is in a class. Well, he's in a class with kids with multiple disabilities, but he also integrates into the other class. And I just think it'd be so cool for them to have that on the shelves. So yes, I plan to donate it to my elementary school.
awesome. I love
Yes.
that. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and if I'm ever in the area, would love to stop by and maybe read the book. So
Yes, that would be great. If you are either in Northern Virginia, let me know. That would be great. We can schedule that with the librarian. But yes, I love it all. But again, thank you so much. Thank you so much to the audience for listening or for viewing on YouTube. I ask that you continue to follow The Climb on all your social media platforms at Join The Climb on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Until next time, keep thriving and keep climbing.
yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the Climb podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on wherever you listen to podcasts. For updates and behind-the-scenes content, make sure you're following us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Join the Climb. Until next time, keep climbing and keep thriving, sis. See you next episode.